to Pinpoint Weather University. I am meteorologist Brandon Lawson. We've got to talk about the tropics. The tropics are heating up. We have our first named storm of the Atlantic Basin hurricane season. Tropical Storm Arthur has formed. And let me tell you something. It's a pretty ugly looking storm when you look at it on radar and satellite right now. Not a very impressive looking system. All the moisture is sheared off to the eastern side of the storm. You don't really have that symmetrical view. You don't even really have an eye with this storm. It's just so hard to really understand how this thing even formed, especially being as close to land as it is. But National Hurricane Center and these some hurricane hunters were out there surveying the storm, looking at it, and they found 40-mile-per-hour winds, and that was enough to upgrade what was a messy looking area of low pressure to Tropical Storm Arthur. So we now have our first named storm of the year. Obviously, it's not the most impressive looking storm, but it is creating impacts. I always tell people, even if the storm doesn't look pretty, even if the storm is a weaker storm, like a tropical storm rather than a hurricane, it's still creating a lot of impacts for our friends along the Gulf Coast. And technically, it's still a little early. June 20th, that is the average date for our first named storm when it comes down to the Atlantic Basin hurricane season. And here we are, June 17th, with our first storm. Now, let's talk about this storm in general. The main concern with it is the flood threat that it is creating across southeast Texas and southern Louisiana. A lot of coastal flooding happening due to all of the onshore wind. I mean, essentially, when you go back and look at this thing, it is basically just riding the coastline. I mean, that is literally what it's doing. I'm going to go back to radar here to show you. It's just riding the southeast Texas and southern Louisiana coastline right now. So all that moisture is just continuing to be whipped into the coastline. That is leading to the coastal flooding issues across southeastern Texas up through southern Louisiana as well. So that is why flooding is absolutely the top threat here. Increased flash flooding all the way from Houston, Corpus Christi, towards New Orleans. And then as this area of low pressure or tropical storm moves further northeast and moves further inland, it brings all that moisture from the Gulf with it. So it's going to create an even more inland flash flood threat as we go into tomorrow for your Thursday. So Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, Baton Rouge, areas that might not be necessarily dealing with a very significant flood threat right now, will unfortunately have to see a more increased flash flooding threat as this area of low pressure, which will likely be a remnant low pressure system tomorrow, but we'll call it Tropical Storm Arthur for now because that's what it is right now. But as Tropical Storm Arthur moves further inland, it is going to create more of a higher flooding threat further inland towards Birmingham, Alabama, and even bring us some shower and storm chances here in the Carolinas later this week. So here's a look at the tropical alerts right now along the coastline, the Gulf Coast, Galveston, areas like Morgan City, as you're getting further east. We've got tropical storm warnings in effect. Wind, obviously going to be a big thing with this system. 40 to 60-mile-per-hour gusts have been reported on the coastline. So obviously it's packing a bit of a punch when it comes to the winds. We got a buddy in Lake Charles, Louisiana, doing exactly what I do. He's a meteorologist. I want to check in on him here as well. And I understand that he's been dealing with some rainstorms, and rain is really the main factor they're worried about there. And let's look at the track of the system from the National Hurricane Center. Essentially, this tropical storm rides the coast over the next really 12 hours and will make landfall somewhere, whether it's towards southeast Texas, around Galveston, or as you're getting towards the western portions of Louisiana. It will make landfall eventually. Now, here's the thing with landfall, and I'm going to go back to the radar imagery. There's not a real good eye with this storm. It's not very well organized. So that's going to make it a little bit harder to tell when it makes landfall. Landfall is when the eye crosses land there completely. And unfortunately for the National Hurricane Center, it's going to be really hard to tell when that happens. So landfall is going to be kind of iffy with this thing. So we'll see what the National Hurricane Center has to say about that. It is still riding the coast. I will double check with National Hurricane Center now, just to double check. Yeah, still no landfall with this storm, but obviously still producing a lot of rain that's offshore. It had a boundary yesterday to the north that was creating a little bit more rain further inland, but now it's more the moisture offshore that we're seeing. But I want to point out So let's look at the track again. So here's the track of the storm. I'll bring it full screen for you to get a better view. So Tropical Storm Arthur just kind of rides the Gulf Coast there and or towards rides the southeast Texas and far western Louisiana coastline, and then eventually makes landfall somewhere. Again, it's going to be hard to tell. And then works its way out towards like Monroe, Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, as just a remnant area of low pressure. Likely some winds and a good amount of moisture with it. But I want to point out when you look at the spaghetti models and look at the tropical models, all of the model ensembles, the area of low pressure eventually tracks towards the Carolinas. Now, there was some worry earlier in the week about just how much rain we could see here in the Carolinas from this system. But I do have some encouraging news. I think the impacts for us are going to be pretty minimal here in the Queen City news viewing area. But I do think as you get further south in the southern South Carolina, you might have a little bit more of an impact there because you're going to see a little bit more heavy rainfall. So this is a look at the rainfall forecast. And let me actually pause this for you so you can see what the rainfall forecast looks like everywhere across the southeast. So you can see Birmingham, Baton Rouge. Here's like Montgomery, Dothan, Georgia, or Dothan, Alabama, rather. Mobile, as you get towards Pensacola. I mean, we're talking about rainfall totals over the next 3 to 5 days in the order of 5 inches or more. I mean, that's going to lead to significant flash flooding in some of those areas. While it will be drought busting rain for a lot of these regions, it's also going to lead to a good amount of flash flooding, that much rain in a short amount of time. I mean, even as you're getting into western Georgia, like towards Columbus, Macon, these areas could see 5 inches of rainfall, if not more. And then as you get further north into our region here in the Carolinas, notice how the further north you go, the rainfall totals dwindle down. So towards the Greenville-Spartanburg area, you're looking at about 2 to 3 inches of rainfall, which is a good amount of rain and very, very drought-denting rain for Greenville-Spartanburg area. Another area that's been dealing with significant drought and other portions of southwestern South Carolina. But as you get further north into North Carolina, the rainfall totals drop off quite a bit. And that is because the area of low pressure that will be remaining, the tropical low from this storm, is actually likely going to track further south of North Carolina and track more through South Carolina and Georgia. And that's why we're not going to see quite as much moisture with this thing. But I want to point something else out. Notice further north, look at all this rain that's happening towards Indianapolis. And as you're getting up towards Dayton, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio, Louisville, as you're getting into Kentucky, and even back towards Peoria and Springfield. I mean, these areas are going to see on the order of 3 to 5 inches of rainfall, if not more. And it's because of a frontal boundary. So we kind of have two features here that we're tracking. We've got a front to the north. We had this little boundary to our south that has been creating some rain for parts of the southeast. And that's the same boundary that was interacting with our tropical storm back to the west. The same boundary that was interacting with that with the tropical storm now. And it was creating a lot of rain for spots like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. But now we've got another boundary to our north that's going to be racing down to the south. And that's kind of pushing all that tropical moisture south of us here in North Carolina, and rather bringing more rain to our friends in South Carolina. So I want to go ahead and show you Futurecast and get you a look at and kind of get a good view of what's happening here. We'll start this Thursday morning. Not a lot going on Thursday morning, but as we go into Thursday afternoon, here come a few storms. Mountains get storms first. Boone, Jefferson, likely some lightning, thunder, maybe the concern for gusty winds. And then as we go into Thursday evening, Thursday night, here comes more widespread rain, which will likely be heavy at times. I think this is going to be mainly a Thursday evening, Thursday night, and a Friday morning event. So you've got heavy rain, lightning, thunder, possibly waking up early in the morning on Friday. And then by Friday morning, by daybreak, check out the radar. It's clearing out. Although we'll have the clouds hanging on tough through parts of the day on Friday, the moisture will move out. Now, there is a chance we could see a few more storms later in the day on Friday afternoon as that front to the north makes its way through. Could interact with a little bit of heating of the day and instability to create more storms. But I'm not too concerned about those storms being that strong or severe. I think that front to the north is going to lose quite a bit of steam as it moves in here later in the week. So a quarter of an inch to half an inch of rain along and north of I-85. But then as you get south of I-85, as I was mentioning, the further south you go, the more rain you'll see because that's where the area of low pressure will be closer. Spots like Rock Hill, Chester, Monroe, maybe as you're getting down towards Lancaster and Sherrill, we'll probably luck out on more of the order of 1 to 2 inches of rain. And then down towards Greenville, Spartanburg, further miles south, you'll probably end up on the order of 2 to 3 inches of rain. So that's kind of how that looks like over the next several days. The more south you go, the better your rain chances are. But if you get too far south, then you have to worry about the threat for flooding. And that's what, we want to avoid here. So again, I will show you the excessive rainfall outlook back to the west. Flooding threat significant tomorrow for spots like Montgomery, Dothan, Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. Those spots, Gulfport, Pensacola. I mean, these spots are certainly going to see flash flooding issues as we go into your Thursday. And then it's more of a scattered flash flood threat from Nashville to Birmingham to Alabama and Athens. And as you're getting up towards Charlotte tomorrow, no real flood threat unless you live in western North Carolina up towards the mountains. Could see some localized high water issues due to some of those downpours during Thursday afternoon and evening. Some of those downpours could create some flash flooding issues in a few of the poor drainage low-lying spots. And then as we go into Friday, I want to point out how this threat moves not really further east for Montgomery and those areas in central and southern Alabama, but we do get into more of like a localized flash flood threat for Friday. This is mainly going to be overnight Thursday and a Friday morning. Could have some ponding, some localized high water and poor drainage, low-lying spots, but I'm not really too concerned about the flood threat for us here locally. I actually think we're going to miss out on a good bit of this, besides the more widespread rain that moves in Thursday night into early Friday morning. So that is a look at kind of your tropical outlook and kind of a look at things when it comes down to Tropical Storm Arthur. A very sloppy storm that is trying to make landfall but struggling to do so as it just rides along the Gulf Coast there in southeastern Texas and parts of southern Louisiana. But obviously, even though the storm is weak, it's packing a lot of moisture from the Gulf and will be producing likely hefty flooding threats further south of us towards the deep south and also into parts of the Kentucky and Tennessee valleys as well. And again, as you're getting further north into the Ohio Valley, they have a cold front that is bringing them a good amount of rain and storms. So the rain kind of splitting us. Further north, you've got the cold front producing the flooding threat towards Ohio. And then further south, you've got the tropical storm Arthur producing the flood threat over the deep south. For us, we're getting kind of remnants of both systems, the cold front from the north and then the tropical moisture from the south. But it's just not going to be really a whole lot of rain and a good amount of rain to really bust our drought around here. Now, it will be drought-denting rain, 3/4 of an inch to an inch of rain for parts of the Charlotte area is a possibility, especially with heavier downpours. But that is something I wanted to chat about. Now, one thing I've not chatted about, and it's something that is very important to mention. While we don't have a very significant severe weather threat out of this, you can see the severe weather threat tomorrow is further north. We can see some of those storms during Thursday afternoon, evening create damaging straight line winds. And as you go into Friday, there's really no threat at all. Stays further south of us where that area of low pressure is going to be churning that remnant low. Now, I wanted to point something out. It will be pretty windy around here as we go into Thursday and Friday. That is something I want to point out as well. Now, we're going to pull up our wind gusts here. And I'm just going to go, not really going to go like too in depth with it, but as you get towards Thursday, notice your gusts picking up. Thursday afternoon and evening, gusts around 25 to 30 miles per hour. Then as we get towards Friday, gusts kind of back off a little bit. So I'm not too concerned about trees coming down, power lines, things like that. But I do think the winds will be stout long enough, 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts over a couple of days, to where maybe you could have some isolated power hits, isolated tree down concerns, but really that's about it. I'm not really concerned about this storm creating major impacts here in the Carolinas, but still want you to be weather aware and pay attention to what's going on with our friends to the south and to the north. And as always, models data can change. We'll see where Tropical Storm Arthur ends up after making landfall over the next few days. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson. A little different view of Pinpoint Weather University, but wanted to give you an update on the tropics. Of course, El Nino has also started. We expect it to get stronger as we go over the coming months, especially towards the fall. Could be a potential super El Nino. meaning that those water temperatures in the equatorial and central eastern Pacific are going to be pretty warm. And that could change some impacts to our weather later in the year and even early next year. But it's still to be known exactly how that's going to transpire as those waters warm up in the Pacific. We'll keep you updated on that and also other things weather as we continue our show on Pinpoint Weather University. But more stuff over the coming weeks. I'm Meteorologist Brandon Lawson. Take care of yourself and each other as we navigate this earth together.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.